Okay, so we'll start off with just the live action footage of this girl. This is it. I shot it with the camera basically tilted sideways, so that this way it would allow me to have, have to rotate the image 90 degrees here, as you can see, because this is actually how it was shot. And the reason why it was shot like that is so that I'm basically, I knew that I don't need to film anything here on the side, so I don't really care about that. And I wanted to have more of a resolution, so that then I can decide later on in post-production if I want to frame, let's say, the whole girl, or if I want to zoom in, and that kind of thing. So in this shot, actually, I decided I wanted to zoom in a little bit, so I'm going to scale it up, so I'm not really worried about all these other things. And maybe we'll show her somewhere from here. So when she drops when she's first lifting up the umbrella, we can see it, but after that you don't need to see it. And then she walks away. And first thing we gotta do is we gotta just key it out. So we'll select the layer, right click, go to FX, keying, and choose key light. It's a built-in plugin that comes with After Effects. Click the color area dropper, and just click the blue to select it. Then you can go to your combined matte here when you go to the view, and this will kind of show you how your key or your matte is looking. So the white represents, 100% white represents 100% opaque, and 100% black represents 100% transparent. So you want to now adjust those settings, and depending, how you shoot your blue screen footage, if you have very regular green or blue screen, then you're gonna see those more of those kind of problems there in the areas that you want to cut out. Here, as you can see, it's not too bad, but I mean it's never going to be perfect. But up here we had some of those wrinkles there in the corners, and it was kind of not as bright as the middle of the blue screen was. So we'll have to sort of adjust it. So first way you can adjust it is by just adjusting the screen gain and balance, and you can sort of drag the gain, and you can see it adjusts how much of the screen is being keyed out, and then also the balance, whether you want to be more aggressive with the keying out, so basically it includes more of the blues, or if you want to be less aggressive, then it will become more opaque. So we'll kind of put it up a little bit like that, and then also we'll extend here screen matte, and we'll also adjust it. We'll clip the black and the white area, so we'll clip the black some more here, and then the same thing for the white. We'll clip it back so that we kind of send back the, here the umbrella, kind of make it transparent somewhere there. And if you roll through it now, it looks pretty good. It's a nice matte. Now we can go to our final result, and this is how it looks. As you can see, it's already pretty cool. And then afterwards we can play around, but we'll do that later on. With sort of fine-tuning the keying. And this keying process is going to be the same for all the shots that I've done. So I basically always apply key light and things like that. Now, if you want to, for example, like I notice right now that this girl doesn't really interact ever with this corner of the image. So maybe we can, or we'll do it later. We'll basically create a garbage mask where we can cut out any inconsistencies in the shot. So that's good, and then now we can take our background image, which is this, just a still photo I took in one of the locations, and this is like I said, our starting point. And I know I'm kind of well, even when I put it together with the shot of the girl, she looks basically gigantic right now, this shot, and it's because the street should be a lot bigger, basically the hydrant in the window compared to her. So somewhere here I would say is probably the more of the kind of the correct scale that we want to go for. So we'll kind of adjust the shot like this, and right there we have it. Now another cool thing I want to do though is just to make the shot feel a little bit more three-dimensional, is to basically be able to go and add some camera movement. So make it look like the camera's, let's say, panning, from left to right, or dolling in and out. So what we'll do is we'll create a camera, go layer, new camera, and you can adjust your settings here, what you want your focal length to be and that kind of stuff. We'll just leave it default just for this example. And now whichever layer is 2D is going to look essentially the same, but the second you make a layer 3D, it's going to put it in, and we're going to basically view it from the camera's point of view. So to make a layers 3D is these are our two layers. So first, let's say the girl. Here we have the 3D layer, right? We can sort of check this off, and when you click it, you have all these other options now for position, position and different thing orientations and scale, and also the rotation of the layer. So right now it becomes 3D, and the same thing with the background. We'll make it 3D, and now we can take the background, for example, and we can move it in 3D space. Actually, you can move it in 3D space, and it might not be evident right now because the camera is not moving. But for example, if I were to, we can go here to our two views, and you can see that this is where the background image is. I kind of moved it back. So this is where the background image is. So we can move it further away from the girl, closer. And then here's our video here, clip of the girl. And here is where the camera is. So just looking straight on at them. Now if I take that camera and I rotate it, see, and we'll go to the right, you can start seeing that these are actually 3D layers. And it's kind of a cool effect because, like I said, you could even do a camera move like this. You can move it from left to right, for example, make it look like it's dolling. In the final video, that's not what I actually did in this shot, but just for the sake of the example, let's say we'll try to move the camera like that, do some kind of a funky move like that. So we'll go in here, we'll go to transform, go position, we'll click the stopwatch next to the position, the point of interest, orientation, all of these pretty much, just keyframe them. And let's say we'll go to the end of the shot, and as the girl is leaving here, this last frame, we'll move the camera this way, so it looks like it's, there's a limit to how much you want to move it around, because at the end of the day, if you move it too much, it might look like like you're just seeing two flat images. So you want to really play around with those settings, but also you want to be aware that you do have a certain limit of how far you can move the camera. So I'll move the camera back maybe, so we'll make kind of fake almost like this kind of a dolly move into here. And one thing I'm noticing is the background is because we moved the background further away, it's not covering enough of the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale the background up. So here's our background layer. I'll just scale it, increase the overall scale of it, and now you can see we're starting to have this sort of a cool 3D camera move. Maybe we'll go again to our starting position, and again just play around with the position of the camera, somewhere there, and then go to our last position, and move it even further. And maybe we'll take the point here, the interest point, and and we'll just kind of translate it here to the right. So it almost looks like the camera is basically like the girl's gonna go out of frame because the camera is going past her. So this is how our camera moves, and she basically leaves frame. So it's kind of a cool little camera move. Maybe we'll move the point of interest at the beginning too, just to sort of center the shot more. Again, we can preview it, see how it looks, and that's kind of how it works. You'll just sort of work around and do your camera move, and this one's a very simple camera move in the respect that it's not like, for example, we can move it down, let's say, like let's say make it look like a camera is dropping to the street, and then we can also add other points. For example, here, let's say in the center, we don't want the camera to drop, as much yet. So we'll keep the camera up, and then afterwards the camera will drop. So it's gonna go sort of like this, and then here it's gonna start dropping lower, past the girl, and this is how the shot will end. So, and then you can switch. For example, in this view, we can right now it's showing it from the top. We can look, for example, from the left, and we can see now how the camera move is translating. So for example, here's the path for the camera move. So we can select even those individual keyframes, like this is the keyframe in the center, and we can move them around and kind of adjust the curvature of the camera path. And again, I just kind of drag and drop it, and here I'm noticing it's kind of the camera seems to go up and then down too much, has that effect. So maybe what we'll do is we'll take the camera here, So it seems to be doing that too much, so like that. Now it should be a bit better, so camera goes in, and then it kind of drops once the girl leaves. Okay, so like I said, you can endlessly tweak this shot. We can go click here again to one view, which is just to see the shot here from the camera's point of view, and we kind of just want to preview it. Just make sure that all looks to the camera's move is to our liking. So this is how it looks, and let's say we're happy with the camera move. Next thing we start working on is kind of tweaking the way that the girl kind of integrates into the shot. One thing I noticed right away is that noise there in the corner. So what we'll do is we'll create a quick garbage mask, and what a garbage mask is basically it's a way to just quickly cut out the part of the image, like 100% just cut it out. So we'll go again to the layer here with the girl. We'll go to key light, and we'll clip it to combined mask, and we can see now where that problem is. Problem appears here because of the the wrinkles there in the blue screen. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to create a quick mask, basically selecting the areas that I want to keep, and everything else outside of the mask is going to be basically cut out. So click our pen tool here, make sure you have your layer here with the girl selected, and just click on it, and let's say we'll select here, 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 this point here we can cut it out, and then here pretty much the rest we can keep. So we'll go like this and like this, and we can sort of scrub quickly through it to see that we're not cutting out some other elements that are needed. And as you can see, the umbrella and everything, it still stays within it. Now when we turn on our final result, we'll see that the mask is working. What it's actually doing in effect is anything outside of this mask is basically not going to be visible. So if we deactivate the mask, you'll see that those dirty edges there come back. So, and then we'll make it add again, and as you can see, it's pretty good. And we can also feather the mask, meaning just kind of blend those edges in case there's some inconsistencies between it, so it's not such a sharp edge. So just feather it like maybe 10, 12, whatever pixels, and that's it. And we got rid of that problem mainly, so we can lock the mask so we don't move it anymore. So for example, what I'm going to also add in the final shot, which is something that I know, is the vignetting, which is I just kind of want to darken the edges. And here's how the vignetting looks just on its own. It's basically just it's a black image that has a mask in it. So if I were to create from scratch, I go to layer, new, solid, make it black, whatever, you can call it whatever you want it, and then I'm going to go to our mask tool, but I'm going to select the elliptical tool, and you can just double click on it, and it will create it basically as wide and as tall as the compass. And then up here we'll go to subtract, and we'll feather it, and you really want to feather a lot of it. And then also we'll just change the opacity to like basically however strong you want it to be. Let's say 50%, and right there you have your vignette, so it kind of nicely darkens those edges. So that's one thing I know I'm going to do. And then another thing I'm going to do is apply some some color effects and levels and things like that to change the color of the shot. And it's you might want to do color correction sometimes while you're in the middle of working on the shot, because it is really going to make your life a lot easier. Like if you're without the color correction, you can see a lot of those inconsistencies there with the edge, but look at it, what happens once I apply the color correction. Right away, all those things that I was worried about before, they disappear and they kind of blend together in the shot nicely. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So if you want to start doing a color correction while you're in the middle of doing the effect, go ahead and do it, because it is going to help you hide a lot of those little problems that otherwise you'd have to spend a lot of time on. So I'm going to just delete the other vignette. And so that's kind of how our shot is going to look with our final color correction and vignetting. Okay, but now we want to add other elements to the shot to kind of make it feel alive. So one thing you see is the girl has an umbrella, so we want to add some rain. And here's how you do the rain. We'll create a new composition, and it doesn't really matter what the settings are, but if you keep it higher than, right now we're working at 720, so 1280 by 720 resolution. So this one, if we create it, and I'll just select the frame rate to what our comp is, but otherwise I can make it bigger than what our comp is, so this way it allows us to zoom in and zoom out. And we can call it just, rain, let's say 1, we can do a few different versions of it. And we'll create a new solid here, and in the solid we'll right click on it, go effects, simulation, and click CC rain. And as you can see, it right away creates rain for you, and you can adjust the intensity of it, the amount. Let's say you want it to be a little bit less of it. This is how the rain looks. Let's say the speed of it, you can decrease it a bit, and since our shot is in slow motion, maybe we'll decrease it quite a bit. That you can change the things like the angle that it's falling at, and those are the kind of things that you can do. And then once you have this composition created, we'll basically go back to our comp here that we're working on, and here's our composition. We'll basically drag it and drop it here on our shot, and we'll make it change the transfer mode here. And you can do that by clicking here, or if you right click on it, you can go to blending mode, and you can change it to whatever, all the different options they have. So we'll try screen, for example, and as you can see, the screen, it kind of basically takes out all the dark areas, and anything brighter kind of puts it over our image. And this is how it looks without it. This is how it looks now with the rain. Now one thing is, since we have a camera move, we also want to essentially turn that rain into a 3D layer. So what we'll do is we'll actually create 2 layers, so we have it sort of in front of the girl and then some behind the girl. So we'll go again into here and click into 2 views, choose this one to be the top camera, and here for the rain we'll click on this 3D icon, make the rain 3D, and we'll move it basically in front of here of the girl, and sort of like put it halfway between, this is our layer of the girl and this is the camera, so kind of put it maybe halfway. But we also want to go to the end of the shot, make sure that the camera doesn't actually physically go through the rain. So here at the end of the shot, the camera gets actually pretty close to the rain, so maybe we'll move it back just a little bit so you can see it a bit. It's not completely blurred out there. Maybe a bit there. And then, so that's one of our layers. And then we can also scale it down, I think. Here's one thing we can do. Let's just go transform, scale it down, because it's really, like if you were to look at it, it's really, basically before it was way bigger than our comp. So those rain drops would look huge, basically, especially at the end of the shot when we zoom in. And then now we'll duplicate it. So go Control D, or you can click Edit, Duplicate, and we'll take this layer now, this duplicated one, and we'll place it here between the girl and the building there, the wall. And this layer in turn we'll have to scale up, so we can click S to show us just the scale options, and scale it so that, because right now as you can see it's not covering the whole background, so scale it, and we can move it also to this side here, so it's just more in the center. And let's go back to our one view, and there, right now as you can see, it's nicely covering this whole thing, and you can see our rain moving. Now the thing is that both of these layers, now the rain is basically the exact same 2 copies. So what we'll do is we'll take one of those rain layers, like this one, and we'll just drag it here to basically change the timing. So it's a slightly this one will play ahead, and this one will be playing the rain delayed. So nobody's going to notice that difference. We'll go back to our rain layer, and overall now I'm going to decrease the amount of rain by half, simply because we now duplicated the rain. So instead of 120, I'll make it 60 here. Now we can go back to our shot, and it looks more right. That's how the shot looks. And so basically now we have this rain, and it's 3D. Another thing we can add to make the shot even more alive is, you save it. You want to be saving every so on, just in case your computer crashes, because trust me, it happens to all of us. Okay, so another thing we can add is add some other people there on the street because it feels kind of empty. So we'll go to our footage that we shot, and like I was saying before, I've shot a lot of footage here of a lot of different elements that I knew I would need for the video. So some of the footage is just extra. So I just had people coming in and I recorded them from different angles, and different, framing. Some of it was just, waist up. So here's my brother with an umbrella, and then there's also this stuff, and these are just basically all people walking on this treadmill that we had, and they're all just walking and pretending like rain is falling on them. So we have different clips of different people. Here's some, and I divided them up nicely so it's all easy to find. I have full body shots of people, so maybe we'll take one person, like a full body shot, like this woman here, and we'll add it in behind. So we'll just drag it and drop it into our comp. So I'll put it behind the girl, and then we'll take another shot maybe of somebody else, and that one here we also have, for example, like, look at it, like I pretty much shot all the same people, and like I said, I shot it sideways just that I have more resolution there. I shot it, all of them on the treadmill, and I also shot them at 3/4, but only from one angle, so that this way if I had some shots where I wanted them to kind of walk, kind of not directly side to shot or walking right into the camera, but I kind of had them walking the 3/4, then it would allow me. And here's we'll take a shot, maybe one of those upper body shots. Let's see maybe we can take a shot there with my brother with the umbrella. So something like this, he's walking, and especially since he's going to be in the foreground, so I don't need to see his legs, I know. So I'll put it there on top. That's kind of how we'll do it. So now what I have to do is also take these layers. So this is our, can rename it here, foreground extra. Okay, and here the other layer, which is this woman here sideways. We'll name her the layer background extra, and right there we have it done. We'll rotate this shot too. Go to transform, rotate 90 degrees right there, and we can now take both of these layers, these extras, and we can make them 3D layers. So now that it's a 3D layer, we'll go again to our two views, and we know we want this guy to be basically in front of our hero girl, but also behind the rain. So we'll drag him somewhere here, and that should be okay for now, and we can play around afterwards with the scale and his position. We'll hide him, and now our background extra, we know we want that woman to be essentially be between our hero girl and the wall, which is sort of where she is right now. Now I gotta actually turn it into a 3D layer though, so here click this, and you can see that's where she is. She's almost square in the middle between these two layers, and we'll just kind of put her down a little bit. Let's say we put her here, and that's it for now. And this is how the shot looks now. Let's go to one view, and obviously we gotta key them out and then arrange their position. So first I'll work on the woman there in the background. So here I'll just click this little check mark, which basically just means that all we want to right now see is just that one layer. All the other layers are hidden automatically. So it's just a quick way of, instead of having to go through all of these and turning them on and off, we can just do it that way. And what we want to take out is first just do a quick garbage mask to take out the treadmill there, and then just apply our our quick key, remove the basic blue screen. Also, before we do that, I'm gonna I'm gonna move this thing so to the moment where the woman starts walking, maybe adjusting her jacket. So she's walking maybe, and we'll see as the shot progresses she'll walk, adjust her jacket, and look up at the sky. So that's kind of what's gonna happen. So okay, that's good. So now we can go take our pen tool, and we'll just quickly create a mask just around the parts that we know we're gonna see. So there. Just a quick mask. We can go again, look at whether make sure that we're not cutting out the legs or anything like that. Anything important there? No, we're not. Okay, that's good. We can even move this point a bit closer here, I noticed. Maybe that's too close, we'll see. No, it's okay. So this way, you know, we can cut out most of the blue screen. And then again, just, you know, right click here, go keying, key light, and we'll just do a very quick job. And go to combine mask, and we'll adjust our matte by clipping the black areas there. So here on the legs disappears, and clipping the white areas. Go to final result, and it's pretty good. We can maybe soften the edge a little bit by 1 pixel maybe, and shrink it by 0.5 again. Let's try it. There, it just cleans up the edges just enough. And now the same thing for our other extra here. So alright, go final result. Okay, so there we have those two extras keyed out. Now it's time to adjust their position. So maybe first we'll do the background extra. So we know in the 3D space relatively she's halfway between this girl and that wall. So she obviously should be, you know, lower. She looks like a giant right now. So we'll move her lower. Maybe we'll have her starting maybe a bit later in the shot. Maybe somewhere here. And or maybe, you know what, let's rotate her so she looks like she's walking this way. So we can just go to our scale here, unlink it, and go in our x-axis. Just click it minus 100. So she's now facing this direction. I'll put her a bit. Let's say she should still be a bit lower. Let's adjust the scale now. I think since she's behind that girl, she shouldn't be. Especially her head. You can see right now. Before, at least, you could see that her head was really huge. And you just kind of want to place her where you think, you know, perspective-wise, you know, even as we move through the shot, she looks like she belongs there. Okay, so somewhere there I think might work. Move it down even more. Okay, and then what we're also going to do is we're going to keyframe the position at the beginning and then at the end here. And somewhere there. And we'll move her basically forward because she was stationary since she was walking on a treadmill. So move her forward, and then it's just a matter of, you know, how much you want to move her. It just, you know, you got to see whether it looks like she's starting to float now, or maybe she's walking too slowly. So it's just a matter of previewing anything. I think right there more or less looks like she's walking okay. So there we have that woman placed in the shot. Now we can worry about our foreground subject. So again, we'll extend here the transformation settings for him, and we'll grab him, move him maybe. Oh, I grabbed the wrong layer. You always got to be careful of that. And I'll essentially move him here and maybe down a little bit, but he seems to be about the same kind of the right kind of scale. And maybe, like I said, move it maybe somewhere there. Have him starting off like that in the shot. Maybe we can even have him start off like somewhere here. Keyframe it, and then as the shot progresses, he's gonna just basically walk past us. So we'll have him get a zoom out here, move him in the x-axis, so he walks past us, and zoom back in. Let's see how that looks. looks like it might be okay. So maybe, you know, we'll start him off even closer to the girl here, so it kind of clears the area sooner. And then we'll just zoom in up here, and let's just kind of preview it quickly, so see whether we're getting more or less the motion, the layout okay. Here's how the shot looks now, and I would say the woman in the background, she's moving at okay speed, but our guy here in the foreground should be even faster. So I'll translate him even more. So then I'll just change that quickly. So basically the second point here where he goes, I'll move it even more and further. I would say almost twice as much. So move him somewhere there. Let's preview it again. So now we see him kind of walk past her a bit sooner, and it's already looking like a pretty cool shot. And you know, it's all about sort of slowly building up one layer on top of another layer, and kind of working on this shot. So it's not like a, you know, like you can just sort of go in there and go step by step, and then that's it. It's all done. You'll end up sometimes going, you know, back a little bit, maybe changing your mind on certain things. Let's see, maybe now I'm looking at it, I might want to change the camera move a little bit. But that's the cool thing when you're creating these sort of shots all in the computer. As an effect, is you have all this control now in post-production. You can change the framing of the shot. You can change the speed even of it. You know, things like that. You can add more people, less people. You know, on the shot. Increase the rain, decrease the rain. Those are all these kind of things that you're capable of doing. Now, one more thing we're gonna add, which is, I know I did that in the final video, is here we'll go to our two views, horizontal, and here's our camera and here's our different layers, right? I want to make it the shot feel even more 3D by adding a depth of field effect. So basically, this girl, I want her to be in focus, but everything else to be slightly, you know, depending on how close they are to her, slightly going more and more into, you know, out of focus. So the way we'll do it is we'll go to our camera settings here, extend camera options, and we have the depth of field is turned off. Click on that. We'll turn it on, and you're gonna see you have another thing up here for which is the focus distance. And as you move it, see, you can see it here changing where it's focusing. So if we choose our layer with the girl, our hero girl, this is where she is. That's the layer here. So if we choose the camera, we want to make sure that that focus distance is basically as close to her as possible. So we'll put it up here, and we'll keyframe it, since we're gonna have to basically pull focus essentially. And then we're gonna go to the end of the shot here, and we also want to make sure that we're focusing, because now we're focusing where the wall is more or less. So we want to take the focus, or even way beyond that. So we want to pull it back, the focus distance, and make sure that we're still focusing here where the girl is. So more or less there, and we can go, so for example, halfway through, and just double check that that focus stays with her throughout the whole thing, and it looks like it is. So now the cool thing is, if we go and we'll make this full screen again, if we since the the depth of field is turned on, if we increase or decrease the aperture, you're gonna see how, you know, the effect of the depth of field, how it's gonna look. So so right there, it's creating a pretty cool effect. And now as we're gonna get closer, you're gonna see that everything else is gonna go, because if you know anything about depth of field, then you know that the closer you are to your subject, then the more evident the depth of field effect is. So we can see it now. She's still in focus, but now the background is really thrown out of focus as opposed to at the beginning of the shot. So it kind of simulates this realistic looking depth of field. And we can apply our, let's say, vignetting here and our color correction, and this is how our shot looks right now. And as you can see, it's a pretty cool effect that, you know, we were able to basically create this shot, you know, out of just by using, you know, a bunch of flat images and just, you know, people walking on a treadmill and stuff like that. You can really create a scene that doesn't exist. Now, you know, in the final thing, I end up, you know, adding even more elements. Like for example, I added this lamppost, which is just, you know, from another shot of that street there. This cool looking lamppost, and I cut it out. When I actually put it in the shot, You know, this is sort of how it looks. And you know, again, you can adjust its position, you know, relative things. So for example, you can put it in the foreground here. Uh, you know, things like that, just to add depth to it. So I know that that's actually what I end up doing for a lot of the shots. Another thing I would add is, for example, this dust element. And the reason why I added that is I kind of color corrected it differently, and then when I put it into the shot, this is how it is without it. This is with it. It's very subtle, like you almost don't notice it. But when you're watching the finished shot, which is this is what the finished shot looks like in the video. It's a slightly different camera move, like I said, and that dust just basically helps kind of bring the shot to life, and you know, just adds like another layer that makes it feel like there's actually this wind and things like that, you know, moving there for real on this location. Okay, so now for this shot, we have we'll start with these two elements. So we have a shot of this girl walking, and again she's walking on a treadmill, so the camera is not moving relative to her. So we want to make it look like the camera is basically traveling with her as she's walking down this street. So it's the same kind of business as before. We create a mask. It's the same as we did in the other shots. So create a kind of a garbage mask where we cut out the other stuff. We apply key light to key out the girl, play around with the settings, and once we've done that, next thing we need to do is, because if we just simply put it like this, and you know, this is all that happens, then it's kind of boring. You know, the perspective doesn't change, or we want to turn this into a 3D basically object. So the way we'll do it is we'll create these simple flat planes, and we're going to project the image, this image that we took, onto those planes, and then that in turn will create the whole illusion of, you know, of perspective change. So to do that, first we will create a new solid. We'll call it, let's say, wall 1, and we'll make the resolution higher, and the reason is so that if the resolution is low, you're just not going to see as much, you know, detail in there. So let's say we'll make it like 2000 pixels by 2000 pixels, and there we have a plane. We want to make that a 3D layer, so we'll click 3D. We also want to create a camera, so we'll go layer, new camera. You know, let's say those are the settings that we want. We want to take now this thing, and we can apply, just so we can see sort of how it looks, and as we change the perspective, we'll create an effect. Go generate grid, and it basically just creates a little grid on top of our wall, and what we're going to end up doing is we'll rotate this, so we can rotate it, and we can even grab this icon, rotate it along the Y. We gotta grab the rotation tool here and rotate it, so you can see how it changes the perspective, like that. We'll move it now. So grab the Y, also move it up, and we can scale it. So let's say in the Y, kind of make it a bit thinner. And then we're going to duplicate that wall, call it, let's rename it, call it ground, and we'll move it down, and we're going to rotate it, I believe it's in the X, 90 degrees, so go like this, and again we'll move it to kind of more or less so it matches up with this stuff. Now if we grab our camera orbit tool here, then you can see we created these kind of a floor and a wall. And what we want to do is we kind of want to sort of align them. So we can move the camera around like that, and you know, play around with the perspective and all that stuff. I would say the perspective needs to change even more, so we gotta change the settings in the camera. So we'll go here to camera options, and we'll go zoom out, so basically make it even more of a bigger perspective change, so like a wider angle. That's basically what we're doing. And then we can grab the camera, and we want to move this camera in and out. zoom in here. Not gonna do it perfectly here because, like I said, it is kind of time intensive. But just to sort of illustrate the point. So let's say we're happy with this. I'm gonna grab my floor now, and as you can see, it kind of ends there. So I'm gonna extend it by scaling it this way, and now I'm gonna even make it wider. It's gonna kind of go past there, somewhere like this. And then another thing we'll do is create another, copy this another wall, and we'll basically create another one just for the background there. So somewhere there, and we can go now to the top view. So go, let's say, to our two views, horizontal, and from the top we can see that this is our ground here. This is our wall here on the left here, and then this one we kind of want to move it back even further, so it kind of looks like it's almost like there where the ground ends. So if you were to zoom in, that's kind of where we're going to place it. And again, this doesn't have to be exact. I mean, once you see the effect, you'll be able to then tweak it, and then you can play around with the settings. But sometimes I find that even if you don't make it very detailed, it still kind of creates the illusion of perspective change and all that stuff. So we want to create a light that casts shadows through our background, and it's going to project itself onto these walls. So I'll get a new light, and we want to turn on cast shadows, and we're going to make it a white color, and we'll make it a point light, and that's it. I'll click OK, and now you can see it's already affecting those walls there. Now we want to duplicate our background, so can you Control D? We can keep this one here, and we'll rename it as background projected. There we go. And we will make it a 3D layer, this one. And now the problem is that when we go to our two views here, this is where our background image is. It's right in the center. Now our light is here, in front of it, and our camera is even further back. So now what we want to do is we want to essentially copy the position of the light and the projected image to where the camera is. So we can press P here to show the position of the camera, then the light, and our projected image. Move them closer, and here's what we'll do. So we'll take this position, go Control C to copy it, and then Control V to paste it into this position. So we moved it here. Now as you can see, the image there, the background image has moved where the camera is, and we'll copy the light there too. Now the only problem with that is that the image is basically exactly where the light and the camera is, so we can't see it. So we gotta move it forward a bit. So it doesn't matter how much, but as long as it's basically ahead of your walls here. So there, and obviously it's way too big, so we gotta because it's so close to the camera. So we'll just take it, press S here, and scale it down till we kind of match it up to what our original background is. And as you can see, that's our projected image that we're gonna have. It's not perfect, but it's gonna work to illustrate the point. Now what we want to do is we want to go to material properties here for that object. We want to put light transmission to 100% and cast shadows to on. And then actually the cast shadows, we want to put it on to not on but to only. When you click only, what that means is that it's only going to cast shadows, but the object itself will not be visible. So that's taken care of. And this light itself, I actually mean the walls here, and our three objects for the wall and the ground, we want to turn off the effect of the grid. And now for these three walls that we have here, we want to do is we can press the double click AA to show the material options. Just extend it up here, and we want to make sure that cast shadows is off, light transmission is off, accept shadows is on, and accept lights is off. So make sure it's off for this thing, and it's the same settings for all three, for our two walls and the ground. And oh, the reason why it's not showing up still is if you go here to layer, pick one at a time, pick one of the walls and go here, layer solid settings. I forgot to tell you guys, if it's black basically, then you try to project something onto it. It's as if you had a black screen, I guess, in a theater. You would not really see anything. So you want to change this color to white. And as you change it to white, you can see our projected image appears on it. So that's the sort of the little trick that I forgot. So again, we'll just change the color here of all of these walls, and our wall number 1, layer solid settings, and just change it to white. And basically now what's happening is our three walls here, you know, this one, wall here, the back wall, and then the ground, have this image, flat image, basically projected onto them. Now the cool thing is, the cool trick is that now you can go to camera settings here, and you can animate the camera to basically simulate a camera move. So, for example, if we take our camera tool, if you orbit around, you will see that it kind of looks like, you know, the perspective changes. So, you know, if you go too far, then obviously you're going to see where the projected image ends. But if you move it, you know, just within basically your boundaries of this image, then you can really, you know, it really gives you that sense of of 3D space. So what we're going to do is we're going to reset the camera move, and that's why I shot this image really wide, so I knew that I can kind of zoom in, and then it allows me to kind of zoom out and, you know, while changing the perspective. So what I'm going to do is basically essentially move the camera in. So this will probably be like the furthest that I want to go out. So I'll go to the end of the shot here, and I'll keyframe the position of the camera, point of interest, and the orientation to everything. Keyframe it, and at the beginning of the shot, I'm gonna just here grab my camera tool and right mouse click, and you can just dolly in. So I'll just sort of dolly in, and then we'll just move it up so it looks like we're kind of, you know, moving in on the street. Maybe dolly in a bit more, so the effect is more evident. And there. And now, if we're to play this back, this is how it looks. So as you can see, it's a neat effect, because the wall here that's close, you know, on the ground that's close to the camera, you can see that it really moves and changes, but the background doesn't move as much, which is, you know, what happens in real life, the perspective change. So right away, you know, we managed to turn this very flat looking, you know, image into kind of a, you know, almost making it look like it's a 3D scene that we're moving in. And you know, you can play around with it. If you want to add more details, you can add other objects here, and like basically these walls or objects that you can project it on, for those pipes here, for the windows. I mean, you know, for these things there in the background, you know, those little bridges, all that stuff. But you know, just for the sake of this example here, that's pretty much, you know, all we need to do. And now we add our girl, Carl, just walking in there. I'll move it up so she's on top of the whole effect. Then, you know, you can obviously adjust the perspective so it looks like she's more in the shot. And then also we can add the other girl in the shot there. So here I'll put it in, and you know, again, make it a 3D layer. You can adjust the position of that girl. It kind of looks like she's sitting there against the wall. We'll put her behind Coral here, the other girl, so she's more visible and more on, so she's not going into that wall, into the floor there. There's no shadows there behind her, so we can very easily add shadows by again creating another layer. I'll just create a new solid, make it black this time, name it shadow. Make it a 3D layer also, and we'll copy the position of this layer of this girl, Caroline, and we'll paste it to this position. And and we'll hide the girl in the foreground here. Essentially what we want to do is we just want to uh, take our pen tool, and on the shadow here we'll just sort of create a very simple sort of an outline of what this shadow could look like. I'll press F to feather it, T for opacity, maybe decrease the opacity a bit, and right there I'll just put the resolution to full. You can see it's starting to look pretty good. Maybe feathered it a bit too much. Maybe you can adjust this point here because it's getting too close to the edge. And now, when you see this without the shadow, with the shadow it just looks right away like, a bit more like the girl's there. I'll show the other girl in the foreground. And this is what we end up with. So as you can see, it's a pretty cool 3D effect. I mean, it looks like we're actually traveling down the street and with this girl, and she's just a 2D element, but then we turn these other 2D images into 3D kind of elements within the scene. That we see the perspective change, and we see the other girl. She's also moving down, kind of down the street, or moving away from us. And these are elements that are filmed separately. Of this girl, this is how she looks when she was filmed on her own. And then here's how this girl looks on her own. And then this is how it looks in the final shot. We add again the camera depth of field because we have actually a physical 3D scene. It's a pretty neat effect. Alright, so to do this last scene, it's the same kind of process as before. We have our background image, which is again I took at that location. We have our footage here of the feet, and we'll just key it out quickly. Okay, and this is how it looks once it's keyed out. Then I'm going to just export this image sequence so that I have it as a reference for when I'm doing the 3D grass elements. And then Autodesk Maya, this is version 2013, but I actually used version I think 2010, because like I said, I did this a few years ago. I'm just going to have a new scene here. I'm going to create a new camera. I can name it here, main cam, and click Control A for the attribute editor. Go to the environment and background image plane. Click Create. Click then afterwards on image name. We will go to our location where we saved the image sequence. So, and here we have it. And this image sequence starts at frame 0, ends at frame 89. So it's good to remember it. Click Use Image Sequence, and we'll change our frame length from 0 to 89. And now when you scroll, you'll actually be able to see the footage there, so we can use this as a sort of a reference. So again, I'm not going to go through the basics of using Maya because that will take forever, but we'll navigate the camera here. We'll change the sort of the perspective so it kind of matches the perspective there of the ground. And then after that we can look through our other perspective here camera. This is how it looks. So here's our basic the ground plane. This is our camera that we're going to render with, and what we want to do now is we want to create paint effects. And paint effects are basically it's a thing that's built into Maya, and it kind of simulates 3D geometry. And they have a lot of cool presets, and one of them is grass. So go to Windows here, General, and then here, General and Visor, and we can load in those paint effects presets. Grass. Here's grasses, and there's all kinds of different grasses, so you can play around with it. They have other things. They also have like vines and all kinds of objects. Like all kinds of vegetation, even trees. So you can really play around with it. So I'll just take, for example, this grass. Double click on it, and it turns, as you can see here, into a little brush, and then we can just paint here on the image plane this grass, and this is kind of how it looks. You can even look through the camera's point of view, and you can sort of just paint it where you want it to be. So we'll paint some grass, stroke here, stroke there, and you basically just paint it all in. You can adjust again the scale of it. You can zoom in or something if you want the grass to be taller. It's pretty straightforward. This is kind of how it looks. And then afterwards you can enable the effects for it. So when you press again Control A, you have, I mean, there's a ton of effects for for it in settings. So you can adjust the twist of it, the size. I mean, all kinds of things. You can increase the size of it, how it moves in the wind, and you can also animate the paint strokes. So I basically painted it from right to left, and then I enabled the animation of that. So then the grass basically looks like it's growing up. Another thing I also did is here on the visor, we'll load up the flowers. So you can see the different presets, and also you can easily create your own presets too. But these are just some of the presets. So I forgot which ones I actually end up using in the final video, but I'll just grab, for example, these roses, and again you can just sort of paint them in there. And as you can see, you can change the scale of them and things like that. And when you render them, I mean, these are just sort of very simple representations, but when you render them, you can see it's already kind of looking cool. It has a lot more detail. So then you can start adding lights into it to create shadows and things like that. Once you're done, adjusting your settings, then this is kind of what you end up, with. This is kind of a very simple representation of it, and you just animate it until you get it to a point where you like it, sort of like you like the speed at which it's growing and amount of wind and all that stuff. These are all basically just presets that you like I said, paint effect presets that afterwards you just gotta sit in there and tweak, and it can take a long time. I remember just to get this grass moving exactly the way I wanted to, since I've never used paint effects really before this. It took me like a few days just sort of getting the settings right. I mean, I got it to move and I got it to render, within minutes, but really to get it looking exactly how I wanted it, it took a long time. But anyways, once you're at this stage, then you just render it out. So you go here to your render settings. You choose what file format you want. What's the frame range, which camera you want to render out, and what resolution, and you render out the images. And then in After Effects, you bring in all those separate elements, which look like this. So this is just the grass by itself, and it's rendered with an alpha matte for the transparency. And then when you put the feed in there, this is how it looks, and then our background image, and that's it. That's your finished effect shot. Now, sorry guys, I can't show you in detail every step of the way of creating the grass, but I mean I show you essentially how you create it. But like I said, to show every little setting, there's just way too many settings to go through it. I mean, that would have to be like a whole series of DVDs all on its own. Just creating dynamics in Maya. So there are a lot of tutorials on YouTube. You can go there for resources, and then really, I mean, I would just suggest you just sit and play around with Maya. And like I said, it's gonna take you months to really learn to use it to a point where you're comfortable using it. But it is a great program, and you can achieve a lot of cool things in it. But that's really the way that you create it. And the same thing I created for those vines and the other shots, things like that. It's all Maya paint effects and all presets basically for the vines and things like that. And that's it. And then the final step is really just color correction.